Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel for a Chelsea FC tier list video. In this tier list today, we're going to be taking a little look at the loan army, the current Chelsea loan army, not every single player that's out on loan because there are quite a few, but I've picked I think 16 players from not just the loans, but also players that Chelsea have buyback clauses for because Chelsea, the academy, it's pretty spectacular. There's also some players that over the years that we've bought, spent a lot of money on, but they've never really achieved any kind of standard or any level that would suggest that they're going to be first team Chelsea players for a long time or in the future. Today, we're going to go through, we've got 5 tiers. We've got first team next season without fail. This player will be playing for Chelsea Football Club next season. We've got one more loan, which is up to another year of a loan before then expecting them to break through. Tier number 3 is we'll be playing for Chelsea within the next 5 years, so maybe there's going to be a few more loans and then they'll probably get a chance eventually. And then multiple loans pending, which is maybe we won't be able to sell him, maybe we don't want to sell him, maybe we're just going to keep sending this guy out on loan. Tier number 5, which is at the bottom of the ladder, sell them as soon as we possibly can before the value becomes something that is just a waste of money, time, energy, wages for Chelsea Football Club. So, we begin with a player who scored a wonder goal against Qarabag, never really showed that he was going to be at a consistent enough level to actually be a Chelsea player for the future. Davide Zappacosta. Now, I believe the loan that he's on right now is a 2-year loan. Whenever I see a 2-year loan come out from Chelsea, it kind of again balances out this thing where, yes, we've done some incredible transfer business over the years, but it also reminds you that we've done some pretty appalling transfer business over the years too. Zappacosta, ever since he joined Chelsea, there's always been links to him going back to Italy, leaving the club. I've put him in tier number 5, which is sold if possible, but I think the problem is Chelsea have tried to sell him multiple times and it's not worked, which is why we've ended up doing loans. Yes, when Chelsea put a player out on loan, we do receive money, often, from other clubs for that player to be on loan at that club. Zappacosta, we spent 20 odd million on this geezer, and I think it's time, if possible, that we could sell him. Moving on to Kennedy. Again, this is sadly another one that props up this little pyramid on the tier list we have today. Kennedy is going into tier number 5 as well, sold if possible. Kennedy was a player who was kind of always looking at pre-season, we'd look at Kennedy, we'd see moments of Brazilian magic. We'd see moments of flair, moments of class and quality. And I remember a game against Norwich, he actually showed once that he was a half-decent baller as well. But Kennedy, again, is another player who was never really going to be given that chance now. Chelsea have been a club where we've had periods, we've had years, we've had times when we've been going through transitions when somebody like Kennedy might have been someone that we could say, well, maybe we could use him as a utility wing-back. Maybe we could use him as a utility winger, striker. With the depth that Chelsea have in the squad, I think there are so many of these players today that we're going to go through who realistically have got absolutely no chance of ever playing a competitive game for Chelsea again. Sounds incredibly harsh, but that is the nature of the beast. That's the reality of what this video is. You know, there are some players who are out on loan right now that will never, ever put on a Chelsea shirt in a proper competitive game again. Kennedy is unfortunately one of them. The dog's going nuts. He's got sterilised, so he's a bit wonky at the moment. He's got a cone on his head. But we move into a player who, if you don't know this guy right now, you're going to know him in the future. Levi Colwill. He's currently on loan at Huddersfield in the Championship. He's having a wonderful season. He's had man of the match performances. He looks like the real deal, this guy. He's very, very young. He's still a teenager. And I do believe that Levi Colwill could well have just one more loan before we see him break through at Chelsea. The defensive area right now is one where there are so many questions being asked. We've talked about it in Chelsea News regarding Azpi's contract, Thiago Silva, Christensen, Rudiger. 4 of Chelsea's best defenders. There's a potential that every single one of them might end up leaving. I highly doubt that is the case. But Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel, everybody at the club is going to be looking very closely at Levi Colwill's development. He's very strong, he's powerful, he has the ability to carry the ball forward from a defensive position very similar to that of a Christensen or a Trevor Chalobah, who we've seen break through with those kind of attributes this season. Levi Colwill, I think, will definitely have another loan next season, but at the same time, he is kind of reminds me of Reece James when he was at Wigan. If you watch Reece James at Wigan, you could see that he was ready for the Premier League. You know, Wigan were very lucky to get Reece James when they did. Reece was ready, and I kind of see the same physical development and confidence on and off the ball from Levi Colwill to suggest that this man is very close already. And I think next year, I don't think Huddersfield are going to get promoted, so we could see a Premier League loan move for Levi Colwill next season. Maybe a club near the bottom or a promoted club next season in the 22-23 season. Blimey, this decade is going fast. Mason!
He's licking his nuts. He can't do that because he's got stitches in it. Stop it!
We move into Billy Gilmour, another player who I'm going to immediately throw into tier number 2. The reason I'm throwing him in tier number 2 is because there's a player who we're going to talk about later in the midfield positions who I think is having a better current loan and is probably more likely in the position in the midfield that he's in to get a chance in the starting 11/squad for next season. Billy Gilmour, when he signed for Norwich on loan, I thought it was perfect. You know, they play exciting football in the Championship, but it's as if they've got an allergy to the Premier League, Norwich City. Yes, they won last weekend. They've just fired their manager. Dean Smith's come in. I think that's an amazing appointment for Norwich. 2.5-year contract for him. Maybe he can prove the great escape for Norwich City in their own little way. And I think Billy Gilmour, yes, if Lampard would have taken over, it would have been even better for him because Frank absolutely loves Billy Gilmour. But I think now it is very important in the first few games that Dean Smith is manager that we see him pick Billy. If not, Chelsea are going to recall him. He won't get into the Chelsea team currently right now because he's not had enough game time or not shown enough so far this season to suggest that he can get in ahead of Cover, Georgie, Kante, Ruben, Mason Mount. It's going to be very, very difficult for Billy Gilmour. And I think next season, because 11 games into this year, we're still not seeing what we need to. I think it's going to be another loan for Billy Gilmour. Moving into Bakayoko, a man who, again, I've spoken about him many times here on the channel. The first Chelsea pre-season where GBFC was alive and was a thing. We spoke about Bakayoko and I just did contemplate at times whether I could actually do the kind of job that he was doing on the field. Passing it out for throw-ins once in a while, every couple of minutes. Yeah, I could do that as well, mate. No drama whatsoever. Bakayoko, I don't believe he'll ever play for Chelsea again. I always feel like I'm very harsh because I'm very sarcastic when I talk about Bakayoko. But, again, I just don't think he was ever worth what we spent on him. It was a huge gamble, a gamble that didn't work out. And I think we should sell him if we possibly can. Moving into Tino Anjorin, a player who is, if you didn't know, back at Chelsea because he had an injury at Lokomotiv Moscow. They sent him back to be able to rehabilitate at Cobham. Tino Anjorin, I think, is a wonderful player. He reminds me of Ruben Loftus-Cheek prior to the injury that Ruben has that really set him back. We're now seeing him come back and really perform. Tino Anjorin, I think, has got a very similar potential trajectory to that of Ruben Loftus-Cheek of a few years ago. I think he's a very powerful player. He's an explosive player. He's good with both feet, outside of the box as well, can score. And I do think that there is an opportunity for Tino Anjorin. And again, so difficult right now with Chelsea's expectations. The youth already in the squad that is in the first team squad makes it so hard for academy players and young players to make that breakthrough when Chelsea can obviously still go out and spend big money on ready-made players to make sure that we are consistently performing and competing for all of the trophies. Tino Anjorin, though, I do think there's a very good chance with his attributes that he has, that he could well be at Chelsea within the next 5 years. I think he's a very, very good player. Sorry, again, at the moment that there's an injury for him. But Lokomotiv Moscow, interesting loan move. Obviously, one of the topper clubs or the upper-end clubs in Russia. We'll see how he recovers from that injury. But I do think he'll be given a chance back at Chelsea within the next 5 years. We move into Marc Guehi, a quality player. And I think that Marc Guehi has the potential to be a Premier League captain in the future. When we listen to some of the things that players say about him, Patrick Vieira is saying great things about him too. England under-21 managers. Marc Guehi is a player who is heavily respected. And I do believe that Chelsea one day could well activate that buyback clause. He's made a very good start to life at Chelsea. And I think that maybe Marc Guehi might get another Premier League move. Or if Crystal Palace keep going the way they're going, then Crystal Palace is the perfect springboard for either him potentially coming back, if Chelsea decide to activate that clause, or going to another big club as well, if Chelsea end up spending more money on centre-backs and the current ones end up staying. So I'm going to put Marc Guehi in tier number 3, but I'm actually going to stick him, even though he's not on loan. We sold him to Crystal Palace. I'm going to put Guehi in number 2, because I think that actually resembles how close he is to already being good enough to be a Chelsea player. I know it says one more loan, and he's not on loan. We sold him to Palace, but I think Marc Guehi is so close to being ready to the kind of level that we saw Trevor Chalobah prove in the early stages of this season. So he goes into tier number 2. We move into Ian Maatsen, who actually scored for the Netherlands under 23s or under 21s just a couple of days ago. Very, very decent left back / left wing back. He's currently at Coventry City, and with Ben Chilwell being the way that he is, Marcos Alonso still at Chelsea, I think it could simply be a case of there's going to be multiple loans for Ian Maatsen before he gets considered to be ready for Chelsea. I think he's a very, very good player. Great going forward, but at the level he needs to be at to be a first-team squad member, I still think we need to see more. So, Ian Maatsen goes into tier number 4. Moving in to Dujon Sterling. Again, very, very good player. A very powerful player, but I'm going to stick him in the same category. I think Chelsea will be interested in keeping hold of Sterling, but I do think it's going to be multiple loans before we see him get even close to consideration. We might see in a pre-season, or for the next couple of pre-seasons, we might see opportunities be given, like we have in recent years for similar players to an Ian Maatsen or a Dujon Sterling, but it could well be a while before he breaks in at Chelsea Football Club. Moving into Ethan Ampadu, another one that is an interesting one. It's why I like to do these tier lists, because you get those conflicts between arguments with myself as to whether I want to stick Ethan Ampadu near the top, near the bottom, where's he going to be? Should we even sell Ethan Ampadu at this point after being given multiple opportunities but never really locking down a spot? Ethan Ampadu is currently on loan at Venezia in Italy. And there have been some moments where I've seen Ethan Ampadu put in some fantastic performances. We see it for Wales as well. He's a first team member for his international team too. And I think Ethan Ampadu is an excellent player. I just think at this stage of his career, I think by now, if he was going to be anywhere close to breaking in at Chelsea, we would know exactly what his best position is. And I don't think that anybody really knows what is Ethan Ampadu's best position. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below if you follow the player close enough to have an opinion. I think that we're going to see Ethan Ampadu keep going out on loan. I don't think the Venezia loan move is a loan move that is strong enough to suggest that he's playing at a level consistently enough that is close enough to Chelsea or the competition that Chelsea are going to be looking for. At the moment, he's had a red card as well, but I actually saw that tackle that Ethan Ampadu put in, which was a red card. It was never a red card. He won the ball. It was one of those where you look at it and you think football's gone soft. But I'm going to put Ethan Ampadu, third player in a row, in tier 4. I don't think it's one more loan. I think it could be multiple, and I'm still not sure if he's ever going to make it at Chelsea. I'd love to see him do so. I rate him very highly, but I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be any time soon. We move into Tammy Abraham, who of course Chelsea can buy back from Roma in 2023. When Tammy Abraham first went to Roma at the beginning of this season under Jose Mourinho, he looked very good. He started scoring goals. He was contributing to the team. The hold-up play we saw from Tammy in the opening few games in Serie A was fantastic. Since then, Roma have absolutely fallen away. Tammy's not scoring, and yeah, they've had a couple of absolutely horrifying results in the Europa Conference League, which again, Mourinho's the manager. He doesn't want to be playing the Conference League. He does not care for it one bit. So Roma's results, and of course, they're always going to be hyper-escalated when it goes wrong because it's Jose Mourinho. He always has the headlines, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Tammy, I think, is still going to come good at Roma. I think he's shown enough in the first couple of weeks of the season to suggest that he is going to be a quality player in that league. And I do believe that over the course of the next few years, we're going to see Tammy develop. And I think he will be a Chelsea player again within the next 5 years. It could be at the higher end of that. It could be 5 years when he's in the prime years of his career. Chelsea bring him back. We will have to see if that is the case. But I do believe Tammy's a top striker, and I think he'll be back at Chelsea one day. we move into Michy Batshuayi. You guys know, I've got him on my wrist. I love the geezer. I think he's a top bloke. He's very popular on social media. And he's a very, very good finisher as well, Michy Batshuayi. He's doing all right now on loan in Turkey. But I think it's at a point now where Chelsea have bought in Lukaku. We're rumoured to be linked with other strikers too. And I don't think Batshuayi is at a level that Thomas Tuchel trusts, that Chelsea Football Club trust, to be competing for the highest honours in Europe and in England. So for that reason, as much as I love Michy, I think it's time that we try to make some money for him. He still gets into the Belgium national team. He still scores goals for Belgium as well. So I don't think it's impossible that Chelsea can make 10 mil, 15 mil for a Michy Batshuayi. And I do believe that he's never going to play for Chelsea again. We move into Armando Broja. On loan at Southampton, Albanian. England beat them 5-0 the other day. Great first half from England. But Armando Broja, since he started to start games for Southampton, we can see that he is a proper striker. Recently signed a new deal at Chelsea. And I think at the moment, when we look at the lack of striker options at Chelsea due to injuries, that's always going to happen in football. I think a lot of people have been saying that it would have been nice if we'd have had Armando Broja in the squad. So, for that reason, the start he's made at Southampton in the small amount of minutes that he's had, particularly starting games, looks like a top finisher. And I think it could only be one more loan before we see Armando Broja ready to fire at Chelsea. Moving into Conor Gallagher. Now, Conor Gallagher is going into tier number 1. I have been absolutely beyond impressed with what I've seen from Conor Gallagher at Crystal Palace this season. I'm not surprised. And the reason I'm not surprised is because I've been following Conor for a long time in terms of the loan moves he had in the Championship at Charlton, Swansea, West Brom as well last year. And this guy is a real player. And I think for me, he can do so many different things in that midfield. He's a very versatile midfielder. And this season at Palace, we're now seeing him score goals. We're seeing him get assists. We're seeing him make countless key passes, interceptions and blocks in the middle of the pitch. And I just look at Conor Gallagher's all-round game. He's been called up now for the England squad and might even feature against San Marino. Sent him a message, told him to score a 30-yard screamer for 5-0 up. Just pummel it in, mate, from outside the box. It's going to go in. Trust me. Conor Gallagher, if he gets more than 20 minutes for an England debut against San Marino, man is scoring a goal. You heard it here first on GBFC. I think Conor's ready. I think even right now, Conor Gallagher could do a job in this Chelsea team. He's on loan at Palace. Palace unbeaten at home, having a very good start to the season under Patrick Vieira. What a midfielder to learn from. And I think next season, he is going to be ready to be in the Chelsea squad. Moving into Emerson Palmieri. Emerson goes into tier number 5. I think Marcos Alonso, Emerson, there was always a question about, will it be both of them that leave Chelsea last summer? Or will it be one of those two? The fact it was Alonso suggests to me that Chelsea don't see a future for Emerson at the club. He's going to be in tier number 5. And we finish with another one of the buyback clause players, Tino Livramento. Tino Livramento has arguably been Southampton's best player so far this season, which is not a surprise to me because I've been following Tino's progression in the youth teams now for a while, and he's some player. 5 million is an absolute bargain. Chelsea have a buyback clause for Tino Livramento that is somewhere in the region of 40 million, and I do think that one day we might see Reece James as that wonderful, world-class, versatile player that he is. Chelsea might want to bring Tino Livramento back. If he keeps going the way he's going, he's going to be right at the very top of Premier League fullbacks. He really is. And we have got a lot of English quality fullbacks in the Premier League. And I think Tino is so good. And I think he's going to be back at Chelsea within the next 5 years. I think Chelsea selling him for what we sold him for, it looks like bad business now because of how good of a season he's having so far at the Saints. But Chelsea put in that buyback clause. We're not stupid. We know that we wanted to keep Tino Livramento in the summer. Tino wanted to play first team football. I absolutely love that. I respect that. And as much as I would have liked him selfishly to stay, the fact that he really wants to kick on now, knowing that he's still young, but he's ready for the Premier League. He's proven it now. What an attitude. And I wish him all the best at Saints. And I hope to see him back in a Chelsea shirt one day soon. Anyway, that is 16 players. You can see the completed tier list up on your screen now. And again, like I said earlier, Marc Guehi is not on loan. I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying I've put him in tier 2 because I think he's so close to being ready for Chelsea to activate that buyback clause, bring him back in, and have him as one of the centre-backs at the club. Let me know your thoughts on the whole tier list in the comments below. Let me know about any of these that you totally disagree with, ones that you agree with. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a brand new video tomorrow. Come on, you Blues.